Welcome to episode 92 of the Guitar Builder's Basics video podcast. Luthier's tips, tricks and training from me, Ben Crow, Crimson Guitars. This is a podcast I do... This brush caught on me and wanted to fall off the bench. Okay, I do this basically 5 days a week unless we've got a proper tutorial video going live. And yesterday one of those went up. It was a rather interesting Dan Electro Longhorn guitar Lin from 1958. I was never a fan of Dan Electros. Looking at them in a book, they're not that attractive. But for some reason, just the age and heritage, I don't know, that particular guitar actually got me excited. And I think because it's been around for 50 plus years. And that's a very, very interesting thing to me. Anyhow, that guitar came in, it had an incredibly high nut, or action at the nut, and that needed to be changed. And the frets had been really majorly tarnished. I don't know how anybody played it. The action was so bad. But in the end, it had been in an attic for 20 years, apparently, and it was an eBay steal. So... go and check that out if you're interested. In other news, there is no other news. We're going to get straight on with the podcast. If you have a question, go to the Guild, crimsonguitars.com/guild, and join as a free member and post questions in the forums and link to that question. If you want to support us financially, join the Guild as a premium member. That pays for the editor and wages and stuff to help make 5, 8, 9. We make a lot of videos every week now. Or you can ask in the comments below this video, and I should get back to you, hopefully, if the question is good enough. Or email through to guild@crimsonguitars.com. Today's question is from Derpington on YouTube. He says, what are the pros and cons of scalloping a fretboard, and how would you do it? Okay, the pros of scalloping your fretboard. A lot of you won't realize that when you play, the balls of your fingers, your fingertips, the balls of your fingers, they have a name and it is your fingertip. If you have smaller frets or low frets, your fingertips actually touch the fretboard. And this brings in an element of friction to your playing. Now, if you have a really highly polished, close-grained fretboard like an ebony or something like that, you're all good and you probably won't feel it. If you've got wenge, I'm going to continue calling it wenge no matter what I said last week. People get annoyed that I don't call it wenge, but it just feels wrong to me, so meh. Anyhow, which is open-pawed and coarse, that will you will feel that. So basically, you either want high frets where you can't feel the fretboard, or jumbo, obviously, or you can scallop it, and that means it removes the friction element from the equation. Okay, so what this does, though, is it means that when you are pushing down, you have to be more gentle. Okay, when you're bending a note, for example, you tend to push in and then up, and you might go out of tune. So because you've got less support, and you'll find this if you're used to playing smaller fret instruments and you go to something with jumbo frets, you might find that you put yourself out of tune, or you mess up the intonation a little bit of each note because you're playing is less measured, because you're used to the fretboard stopping your fingers. Okay. Now, what you can do is have a partial scallop. So it scallops from, where you're going to do the major soloing and you want to speed up because you don't want the friction underneath you. But where you're playing chordal work up at the top, you have a fretboard as per usual, and it makes no difference. So it is an interesting, from a player's point of view, it is interesting. And there are people like Malmsteen, for example, who absolutely swear by it. And if you have a junk shop guitar or something you don't mind experimenting with, it's well worth having a play and see what you think. As long as you are aware that you will probably have to change your style a little bit and become a little bit more gentle with your fingering technique, which is always a good thing anyway. You dirty, dirty people. Now, cons, pros. Let's stick with the pros. You are essentially removing a certain amount of material from the instrument. And this means that your neck is going to vibrate more and transfer more vibrational energy from the strings to the body, and therefore make the pickups move and therefore change the tonality of the instrument, if it works the way I currently think it works. And obviously, if you're watching this, you know that tone. Grr. Now, it also means that your tuning stability might well be affected. The neck will become a little bit more flexible, and if you take too much off, or if the neck is particularly thin to start with or not a very good wood, you might have tuning stability issues. But you will have a slightly louder, slightly warmer, slightly better sounding guitar. It will make a difference. Now, the cons are everything I just said. It might have an issues with tuning stability, etc., etc., etc. Plus, it's not that easy to do well, really. The main issue is the inlays. Now, you take your neck, get yourself a round rasp or file or a bastard cut file, something like that, or possibly a half round file, depending on how, or a rasp. You can see this beastie. A rat's tail rasp, flat on one side, round on the other. And it is as simple as putting your file in between the frets and going over in between them until you have removed the material. I don't go right up to a fret. I leave a ledge of half a millimetre or a millimetre, depending on which fret we're at. And I've only done this 3 or 4 times. It's not something that I get asked to do all that often. Now, you don't really need to take more than a millimetre and a half maybe, in order to remove the fretboard from the equation of your fingers. If you, especially up at the top frets, if you can push a string in between the frets 2 millimetres down, then you've got really strong fingers, basically. So just remove just enough so that it's going to be out of the equation. Don't take too much off. And then it's just sandpaper. It really is very, very simple. Wrap the sandpaper around your finger or a little dowel or something like that and go through the grits. 180, 240, 320, and sand it down, put a bit of oil. Now the problem is, for example, this neck has these trapezoidal abalone inlays, something I'm working on at the moment, and if I had removed a millimetre and a half of material from this fretboard, I would go straight through the millimetre thick abalone. Actually, it's probably 0.75 of a millimetre, and that would ruin the neck. If you've got standard dot inlays, what the heck, they might actually be 2 or 3 millimetres deep anyway. If not, you can go to any number of luthier supply houses and just replace them, drill a hole, put a new inlay in, and you're sorted. Or remove them entirely. That's the only real caveat. It's pretty basic. So, thank you very much for watching. If you have a question for the show, please don't forget to ask in the places I mentioned earlier. Check out crimsonguitars.com. Go and spend all of your money in our shop because we make awesome guitar building tools and all that jazz. And in fact, pickup surrounds and control knobs are coming up as well. But that's besides the point. Have an excellent day. I will be back tomorrow. Let's see what tomorrow's podcast is about. Ooh, shimming bolt-on necks. That'll be interesting. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.